When I started Harvest Island, I had an idea of what I wanted my next game to be. I've had a lot of unsuccessful games published, and I was thinking about the advice of other developers during this time. They were saying, you have to make shorter games and build up your fan base. And I made this short game called Harvest Island, which is about two kids on a small remote island, and they have to get off this island somehow. It took me 3 months to make this mock demo. I wanted to play around with the idea of making it an emotional game, something that could pull on the heartstrings of gamers and make them feel more connected to me as a developer if I was able to tell this story really well. This mock demo didn't have any strong mechanics besides picking things up. I really relied on the story being told as my hook. Before I made this public, I gave my mock demo to my family, and they hated it and thought it was boring. My brother didn't even want to touch it. My cousin forced herself to play only just 10 minutes of it, and my other cousin was lecturing me on how to make a good game when he never even published a game in his life before. So I decided to ignore them because they continued to mock me for how bad the game was. But that wasn't going to even motivate me. I decided to double down on that idea because what else do I have to lose? I was already mocked, and that's as low as it's going to get. 4 months later, and I had a demo to release to the public. Hurrah! I decided not to give it to my family members again and chalked it up as they weren't my audience. I wanted to know what gamers thought about Harvest Island. I shortened the demo to 15 minutes. It was a very simple demo, but this time I had a hook. In my previous mock demo, there wasn't a hook. It was just endless of doing nothing. I designed Harvest Island to contain secrets. That made the game worth something more, something that gamers could look forward to because there's an interesting idea being told here. If they see the game as being cute and suddenly taking a mysterious turn, then that was enough to hook them and follow me on my development journey. Surprisingly, the people liked the game and thought it was fun, just collecting stuff around the island and chasing their small raccoon. I got a good review on Steam and people liked the free demo. The hook that I placed in the game to attract followers is pretty much a hidden room with a vending machine. They understood that this game wasn't what it seemed and that there was something special to Harvest Island. This demo was a success. I call this a success because at least I wasn't mocked for it for being a bad game. That's a win to me. 4 more months went into this game and I acquired new art. I expanded the world of Harvest Island and made a home for the 2 kids, sprinkled some farm animals for the kids to do, and started to work on the core mechanics of the game. It was going to be a farming simulator. Instead of just picking up things, you can now interact with things like animals. This helped me define my genre a lot more. During this time, I've had a few feedbacks here and there on Reddit where I posted my game. There were a few complaints and problems I had to solve. One was that the game felt too retro, too old, not appealing enough. 2, the objects that you had to pick up had a dialogue attached to them, making it very tedious and having this very slow gameplay. 3, the characters were super annoying and it was very hard to be invested in the story. So I've spent a lot of time figuring out the solutions for these problems. I decided to make the game into a pseudo ultra widescreen. This meant that playing the game in a 16:9 ratio, which is a very common ratio in a lot of gaming monitors, I would increase that ratio to a 21:9. Whatever you're seeing here in this video, it's a 21:9. It changes the game's feeling a lot. I also removed the item picking dialogue and just made it into an icon. That helps sped up the gameplay. The third problem I had to solve was by refining the characters a lot more. I made it a little bit more lovable. This demo took me 1 year to make, and it felt like it was more polished than my 15-minute demo. I spent another 4 months polishing the demo. so that I could get more feedback and see if I had fixed the problem that the gamers were addressing. Getting more feedback from players was crucial. Reactions weren't great. They said it was a bad game. The game was too clunky. I immediately knew what the sole problem was. It was the dang RPG Maker engine. And that's why gamers aren't interested in Harvest Island. It felt too retro. So, 6 months passed, and I did my best to address the inflexible RPG Maker engine problem. Along with that, I spent a lot of time building the world, the story, the characters, the relationships between the characters, and the secrets that Harvest Island has. It was time for more feedback, so I uploaded another polished demo. The one feedback that kept reoccurring was that they didn't like the sibling squabble. They didn't like how the siblings talked. Other than that, feedback has been sparse. And so, I assumed that the game wasn't good enough because no new players would stick around. So I raised the standard. I had to make the game even better than before. Another 6 months passed. I had established all of my characters, the lore, the character building. Most of the art was done, and the story was almost finished. Lots of items in the game, and I added several big features. One of those big features was the tides. This feature could bring a bit more uniqueness to video games in general, because games don't utilize their environment that could affect the player's gameplay. I figured that if I added this big feature into the demo, it would get more interest. And I was right. The game looked beautiful and polished, enough to give the game a shot. And unexpectedly, I didn't hear how bad the game was. I just kept hearing, "This is another Stardew Valley clone." But I didn't take this as bad news. Oh no, this was a massive improvement. I effectively managed to make an inflexible RPG Maker game into a game people are looking into. I had polished the game enough that it was considered an indie game. All I had to do was polish the game more and raise the standard higher so that the game becomes fun, making gamers forget that it was made in RPG Maker, that the game doesn't feel retro. I wasn't too worried about my game being a Stardew Valley clone. Fixing that bad comment of my game is easy. The hardest part was transforming an RPG Maker game, a clunky game, into an indie game, and I had successfully done that after 2 years of development. 3 months passed, and I decided to reveal why my game isn't a Stardew Valley clone, and why gamers should play Harvest Island. It's because Harvest Island is a horror farming simulator. There aren't any horror farming games out there. There are cute and cozy games, but not cute and cozy and horror. This would squash all the comments of my game being a Stardew Valley clone. A very easy task that I knew from the beginning that Harvest Island wasn't meant to be a Stardew Valley clone, but a horror farming game. At the beginning of my game development journey, I knew what I wanted to make. I knew that I had a very great idea. Not a lot of people understood that because I hid it and wanted people to experience it firsthand. But after making this trailer, people understood that Harvest Island is a horror farming simulator. 4 months passed, and in total it's been 3 years since I've started developing Harvest Island. From a 15-minute mock demo where I was laughed at to a respectable indie game that people are keeping their eye on, it has overcome a lot of huge hurdles There are so many features that Harvest Island has to offer that sets itself apart from other farming genres. It isn't a dating game where you raise your relationship and build a family. It isn't a customizable game where you show what you build to your friends. And it isn't a relaxing game that you can farm forever. It's a story-driven horror farming game. It took me 3 years to get this far and a few more months to have it released. I tend to raise the standard again and to make the game even better. Harvest Island is going to be a masterpiece.